Hello, this is another issue of What's Wrong with My Picture, a weekly review of artists' work who are in the beginning of their career. And today we're going to talk about the work of Magdalena Haddock. She's already been in one of my reviews, but I like her work so much, so I decided to show you another project of hers. Okay, let's have a look. This one is called Brownstone and is shot for MMScene magazine. As you can see here, it's set outside in the daylight, sunny day in New York. Brownstone refers to this very famous New York architectural styles, and actually the bricks, the stones used in the construction of those New York buildings. So I think it's a really good idea to base your story or your inspiration on something that's that iconic and kind of evolve the story from that point on. In this shot, we can see a medium shot of this a guy with long hair and quite rebellious facial expression, which works really well with that direct light in his face. And usually I say, oh, don't shoot in direct light, dark shadows around the eyes, don't flatter anyone. But I think in this case it really works. So there's basically no rules, so there are rules and you can break them if it really works for your idea. I really quite like the style in here. The choice of color is so perfect with the whole idea of the story. And I really like how this jacket is just casually thrown onto his shoulders. That really works with his long hair and this kind of like slightly maybe grumpy eyebrows look. So yeah, let's take a look at the next shot. So here we see a wide shot kind of developing that same story as we started on. And as I mentioned in my other reviews, I really like seeing a variety of closer and wide shots in the same story that will help you get a better idea of the setting, what you're trying to tell, what your model is going through, or where they are and what's the whole thing is about. And wider shots allow for more movement, and I really like the casual pose in here, how he's standing. Now the jacket is already on him so that his arms are in the sleeves, and how casually he's holding his skateboard, and the facial expression here looks really well, as it really feels like a moment that was caught by the photographer, as opposed to posing and waiting for the camera to take a shot. So really nice. Let's move on. Also a very interesting shot, and notice the change in lighting here, and I think it's quite acceptable to have different lighting conditions throughout the shoot when you are shooting on location, as long as they work for the idea of your shoot. If they are still telling the same story, like suddenly if it was a sunny day and suddenly there's a shade, I think it can work. But maybe if it was a sunny day and suddenly there's rain and everything is dark, it might set a completely different mood. But it feels like the light is still somewhere there in the sky, so the mood is quite close to the beginning of the story. And I really like this close-up and his very sincere and kind of open stare at the camera. So I think this shot really works. And I know you guys are thinking, so what could be done better? What is the critique here? So I started this review with two really good ones, and now we transition into this one, which I also like. So what I would have done to make the story even better is to adjust the color palette a little bit. So going between this lighting, which is quite saturated and colors are quite vibrant, to this lighting when the light is so soft, but also the colors are quite muted because he's in the shade. So I would have done some tweaks in post-production, not to necessarily match the light, but more to add the same color palette, so the same treatment of the light and the shadow in color, which is called color grading, to make them feel like they were shot on the same day or by the same photographer, or just to kind of belong in the same story. Let's take a look at this one, which could be a transition shot between the sunny day and the shadow shot, where you still see quite bright spots of sun on his face and around on the background on his hand. And sometimes photographers avoid, shadows on the face, and it seems distracting to someone. But again, if it works with the character, if it adds maybe an edge to the story, maybe if he's maybe too soft and delicate, and placing a shadow on his face, it adds a little bit of an edge. So I think it's a good decision to play with a shadow, but you need to be aware of what the other shadows are doing, how they are creating this composition. Maybe I would have shot this slightly from over here, so that I don't have such bright background, which seems a bit distracting to me just because it's so brightly lit and it's so saturated. If you look on this part of the composition, all the colors are quite neutral, greens and grays. The skin tone is quite muted, and then suddenly we have slightly saturated colors over here. So either you need to fix that in post-production, but maybe it's even easier to just change your angle slightly as you shoot. Definitely experiment more while you're on location, because there's an infinite possibilities of the same shot. So just try different angles and see what works better. Let's take a look at the next shot, which I think is quite extraordinary, and it's so unexpected. And I think that's what the viewer is not consciously but sort of subconsciously looking for, is this factor of like, wow, this really happened, or what a character, or something that really catches their attention and make them contemplate a little bit, like what's going on. Why is he in this case not wearing any shoes, for example, while skating? And I think it's such a smart detail, and like I always say, it's all about details. So the fact that he's not wearing any shoes and he's holding, it looks like high heel shoes, it's such a fun detail. And I really like the wind in his hair, the wind in the trench coat. So it's a really nice shot. I wish there were no cars that kind of restricting this movement, him moving from the left to the right of the frame. So the cars are sort of restricting this movement, being so close to him. And things happen. It's almost a documentary shoot. But if you like the idea, maybe it would make sense to try it again if you step to the side, like step a little further where there's no cars, or wait. I mean, I don't know if this car was parked there or it was just moving. Who knows? Again, since you are on location, you kind of like obligated to shoot more. So definitely try and take some more snapshots just to see what emphasizes the message that you're trying to send. Like what is this fact that he's riding the skateboard about? So maybe it would have worked more in a horizontal shot. It was possible, right? So it's such a brilliant idea, and you want this idea to play as bright and to shine as bright as possible. So another thing that I would mention in this shot is his facial expression. It's like he's focusing so far away somewhere at a distance that I almost feel his absence. And on the one hand, he's probably not supposed to be looking at the camera because he's riding a skateboard. But on the other hand, I still want his face to be more emotional. And I think we've seen examples of him being more emotional in this in the story. But you know, and he's probably was focusing on the riding the skateboard. But again, as photographers and art directors, we have to see every little detail. And face, of course, is not a little detail. It's an important element of the shot, and that emotion, that mood, it's all portrayed in the face. So I would really love to see something more in the face, that this absent kind of stare at the distance. So yeah, try and pay attention to this, because if you don't look at the face, if you don't work with the model's face, then you're letting too many things to happen randomly, and it means that you're spending more time to get that random result, right? But when you are in control, you get the result faster, so you're not wasting your time and the time of your team. And again, how to control models' faces, that everyone asks, what if they can't? I mean, in this case, I think the model is very capable, but showing them references, I think it's the best way, or telling them, like, you are this kind of guy, you know, do this, or literally showing them with your own face or with your own body, that also helps. So yeah, this was a great story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Shot by Magdalena Haddock, so follow her photography. Check out the credits down below this video of her entire team. I think it's great styling here as well, and so great job on everyone's side. And yeah, follow these reviews, and like and subscribe. And also, if you like to support me, check out my Patreon account and stay in touch.